Hi everyone. Today let's talk about searchable and dependent dropdowns in Excel. This type of dropdowns is particularly useful for a large and hierarchical dataset, such as geographical data for a list of, for example, provinces, cities, and districts of each city. This could be also used, for example, in a big corporation where you may have a large list of subsidiary companies, and for each subsidiary companies, a large list of product category. And for each category of product, you could have a big list, a big number of products. Okay, why I wanted to make this video called Searchable and Dependent Dropdowns in Excel. First, I did find on internet a tutorial or some tutorial about searchable dropdowns or sometimes dependent dropdowns in Excel. But I haven't found yet, I may be wrong, a tutorial about both searchable and dependent dropdowns in Excel. The second reason I wanted to make this tutorial is because for each of the solutions that propose either for searchable or dependent dropdowns, it may not always be the most elegant. So it may require, for example, VBA programmation, or I would say using, for example, the name manager in Excel, which I think it's quite cumbersome to do that. So I wanted to, I would say, make a tutorial about a solution that I personally found quite elegant. Let's jump into that. Okay. So for here, I have already prepared a dummy table on the left side. This is a geographical data. You can see that you have a list of continents, a list of countries, and a list of cities corresponding to it. So then I will make the first dropdown about the continent to start, and which will be, of course, searchable. So how do we do that? So the result is here. You can see on the right side here, the dropdown, but I will go explain a little bit each of the steps, how to achieve this. Okay, the first thing you need to do is, I call this a unique list of dropdown that you need to create, a unique and full list, of course, full list of dropdown. So what I did is basically using unique function in the Excel that refers to the whole column continent here. Oh, one thing that you can see that I do use in this case, I would say I did format the data set on the left side as a table. So it's much more transparent in terms of, I would say, formulas that we can see that it refers to the column continent here. You also can notice that despite I only enter the formula on the cell E2 here, it does have already expanded data below. And you can see the formula change to gray color when it's actually not the place where you enter the formula. This is, I think, a function, or it's a feature that in the newest version of Excel that you need to have. Okay. The second thing that you need to use is the search function. So once I have done this formula in the E2 cell, I jump to the column F. I call this the search function. So what the search function does is very simple. It does search, you can see the value contained in the cell J2, sorry, excuse for my pronunciation, to the, I think to the box right here, which is the result of the unique function that we talked earlier. You may notice that the second part of this formula, or the second part of this search function, refers to the whole array of the results, instead of referring just to the E2 cell itself. This is because I did put the number sign behind the formula. So what does this do is that Excel will interpret this as the whole result of the formula contained in the cell E2. So as you can see that it returns basically error or value error if we cannot find the result, and it will return the number if we find the result. And this number actually can change. I would just show you, for example, if you type, for example, ROP, it returns basically the first time the search function will find within this text the full position of the text you are looking for, which is ROP here, right? So you can see that's number 3. This is typically different to, I would say, find function, because you also have a find function. By the way, the find function is quite case sensitive. So while this one is not, for example, you can type in capital and it still will work. OK, so that's why I use the search function. And the find function, for each of the time that you did find the result, it does not return the first occurrence of the result, but more the number of the last occurrence of the result. For example, if you're looking for the letter E here, it will not return number 1 here. It will return the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 probably here, right? Because for Europe, the last letter of E that you can find is the number 6. That's for find function. OK, today we're not talking about find function, so we call search function. All right, and after using the search function, what you need to do is to use isNumber of the result of that search. As you can see again here, I do use again the number sign referring to the cell F2. So it refers basically to the whole result from the earlier search function. And what the search function does, what isNumber function does. So isNumber function is very simple. If this is a number, it just returns true, as you can see here. So now you have a list of false and true. And now we have all the elements that we need to use, we call the filter function. So what does the filter function does is very simple. You can filter one column by the result of a second column, or by the condition of the second column. So you can see that the first I would say value of this function, or first input of this function for the RI is referring to the E2 again, which is a whole list of dropdown filtered by the column G2. The column G2, since it's containing false and true only, so basically it will show just the true value corresponding to it. So each time it's true, it will return. So for that, you can see that it returns this Europe, North America, and South America because it's true for the column G here. All right, so once have you done that, you may think it's finished. No, actually I have added a further step on that to make it more elegant, because you can, for example, notice that sometime you may want, for example, I will explain this later. You may want, for example, after selecting, or if you only return after selecting, let's say you're selecting one continent, you may want to have still the whole list of continents available for selection. If you just simply rely on the filter result here as the variable, or as the input of your validation list here, you will not be able to select other continent once you already select one continent, right? So you can see that. But so that's why I created a further step called dropdown. So that dropdown, how do we do that? Very simple. I use a function. I just look at the condition whether the H2 here is equal to J2 here. And you may notice again, this time I will not use the number sign anymore for H2, because I refer to the fast value here only. And then you can see that either I return, depending on the condition, if it's only a full equality between the filter and the box of the dropdown, then I return the full list E2. You see that? If that's not the case, otherwise, you just return the filter itself. So you can see this works perfectly in various situations. As I said, if you select one continent, it will still show the other available selections, right? That's what we want, of course, for a dropdown. And if you type only one, like RS, you still want to all the results correspond to it. So you see, you can type Europe, and then you'll find Europe. So this is also working. Okay. Now the last thing you need to do for this to achieve the drop down is because you need to go to the data validation here, boxes corresponding to this J2 cell. You need to go and uncheck show error alert after invalid data is entered, so that it doesn't have any warning box, right? All right, I think that's it. As you can see, it works perfectly for the first layer of continent. Of course, oh, sorry, I think I forgot one thing. In the validation, in the settings, you need to refer to this drop-down input or drop-down result. So as you can see that the source of this validation list is referring to the cell I2, but with again a number sign. The number sign, as explained, extend to the whole result of the formula contained in the cell I2 here, okay? So I think that's it. That's pretty much all. Then now let's go to the next steps. How do we do that? So let's select now Europe, because that's the most, the biggest continent in terms of data set. Okay, again, now we're talking about the countries. Very simple. You just need to do a unique list of countries, right, corresponding to the continent Europe. How do you do that? You can see that I use now a combined unique and filter. So why the filter here? Because the filter, I need to filter the colon country based on, you can see I'm filtering the colon country based on the colon continent equal to the cell J2 here that we already have, right? So that means it will filter out, it will basically filter out, or it will only filter the list of countries contained in Europe. But because we wanted to have a unique, in the validation list, a unique list of countries, so you need to use the unique function on top of it. So it will return unique list of the countries for the Europe continent. Again, I think I will no longer explain further because all the step behind is very similar. It's exactly the same as the one we did for Africa, for continent. So I directly go to the search result here, which you can see that, as I say, for the first example of continent, I did break down each step, but here I did basically a more compact formula directly, more extended formula, so I don't need to create an intermediary step of result. So you may see that I'm directly putting each number search inside this function filter. Okay, so actually I should rename this to filter because this is the filter result. And the drop-down result, it's exactly the same, that you see that I'm referring to, again, the equality between country and the filter result here, and then either I return the L2 here, the full list of countries, or the result of a filter that I retype here again. I think that's it. The result filter, I think we can even make maybe a simplification, because the result of filter is the M2 itself, right? Is it correct? I do think so. The result of filter is M2 itself. Actually, this could be even more elegant. Sorry, guys. I know it's a bit like we're doing last minute this change. You can refer to this M2 directly. Yeah, I think it does work. So perfect. So now the drop down refers very simply to either unique or filter, right? Depending whether the cell is equal or not to the selection you have on the right side for the drop down here. Okay, here let's test a little bit how it works. For example, if you type LY, it returns only Italy. Perfect, that's what you want, right? If you type just A, you have 3 countries corresponding to it. Yeah, perfect. If you type L, you only have Italy, which corresponds to the results. Perfect, right? So now that we're happy with that, let's select France. Okay. Okay, and then last step, just I think this is for the sake of more clarity only. You can do the last layer drop down by adding more conditions in your filter. You can see here that I did add Okay, sorry, I just think this is easier to see it like this. You can see that I did add, or I did use both filter conditions. So in the include, what you need to do is you have continent equal to J2, which is already the one we have seen before earlier for the list of list of countries. And then you also need the country to equal to O2 here, which is a selection of the country that you have done. So, and you need to use parentheses around, so it will multiply both together. So that we get the result, basically filtering both based on continent and country name that you have selected. So the list of city now that appears here will only correspond to Europe and France, right? So Europe and France. It means on this left side, sorry, I come back here, it will show this list of city, Lyon, Marseille, and Paris. Okay, as you can see here, it shows Lyon, Marseille, and Paris. You also may notice that I do not use the unique function anymore, despite I call this unique. Well, because this list should be already unique. It is the last layer of your dropdown. So unless you did not clean your database, it should be unique. So you could save, or you could just simply not use the unique function on top of it. And again, this is a search function, as I explained. So so I should rename this. Sorry, guys. Should be filter, and the dropdown here. Again, as I say, maybe I could simplify this formula by referring to the result of the dropdown here, right, which is R2, and then you have the city for selection. Okay, I think that's it. Maybe one thing that I want to share with you guys is about online version. Well, I call this offline version because this dropdown, or this way to build the dropdowns, is for an Excel that being opened offline in your desktop application, for example. This is not, I would think the solution of implementation for dropdown could be much simpler if you only use Excel Online. If you only use Excel Online, you could simply just refer the searchable field to the unique list that you have filtered here. So you can see here, I do not have any further result except the list of full dropdown. And how does this work online is because when it's online, it automatically search when you type inside the validation box here, or the dropdown box here. The online version will automatically does a kind of search based on what you're keying. However, one thing you need to bear in mind, I think it is only by full word. So what I explain is you could not search North America by typing TH. You can type America, it will find it. You can type North, you will find it. But if you just type, TH, you will never find North America. That's for the online version, okay? So it is good because it's native. You don't need to do any programming. You need to do not need to be complicated in terms of building the dropdowns, but it's not, let's say, completely searchable because it's just using the native search feature of the online version. So online version, as I said, is when you open the same file in the browser. Okay, sorry, I think that's the end of my tutorial. I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's maybe meet in another tutorial.